Welcome, everyone, to Somewhere in the Skies, and welcome to our return guest, Chris Rakowski. And the reason, Chris, we're having you on today is because the Canadian government just released their first UFO report in decades. And many decades, I know. And what is going on over in Canada with UFOs, and what exactly is this report that dropped?
Well, actually, all those questions were what this report was designed to do. What is actually going on in Canada? And although there have been some UFO pundits and so-called experts who've been saying, "Oh yeah, Canada, has a UFO report. We're going to find out everything that's going on, and there's going to be some great cases, and it's disclosure and all this sort of stuff," it ain't. In fact, there was actually a disclaimer on the webpage of this Sky Canada project, which stated very explicitly it's not intended to discuss firsthand data or cases or anything like that, or to collect cases of UAP or UFOs. The idea, this was actually supposed to be an exploratory study to find out what is currently being done at the government level regarding UAP, and to suggest how this should work. Now, the office that produced this, it's kind of a mouthful. It's the office of the Chief Science Advisor in Canada. This is actually an interesting position because the person in charge, Dr. Mona Nemer, she's actually a heart specialist, cardiac researcher, and she's sort of the head scientist in Canada, and she reports directly to Prime Minister Trudeau, advise on science, and also jointly to the Minister in charge of Innovation, Science and Technology, and there's a long list there. And part of the mandate was to be responsive to what Canadians want to do about science and some of the concerns. So her office has done studies on microplastics in the environment, and space, astrophysics, and polar research, and Arctic research, and all that sort of stuff. And citizen science also, like how to get people more involved. And she was involved in COVID research and all this sort of stuff. So it's a very broad mandate. And back in about 2022, she was, sitting in a meeting, and she was asked, can we do something about UAP, because people are interested in the subject, and the United States is doing stuff with this ARO, and we want to be able to respond in kind as Canadians. So they sat down and they formulated this, what was called the Sky Canada project. And the idea was to find out what is being done at various departments. Like there were in the departments within Canadian institutions like Transport Canada, which is the equivalent of the FAA in the States, and of course the RCMP and National Defense, and a few other departments that had been involved, were collecting, or where people were reporting UFOs, and it all seemed to be sort of haphazard. And that was what they really wanted to find out. Can we do something from a scientific standpoint? And actually, the idea was that we want to do something from a scientific perspective, so let's do it right. Let's find out what's going on. Let's find out where the problems are, and then come up with some recommendations on where to go from here. They were kind of creating the Condon report, I suppose, which is the scientific study from the 60s. But they wanted to do it right, rather than just sort of say, we're going to collect all this sort of stuff. Let's collect data in a reasonable manner. Let's have good methodology. Let's have scientists on board. Let's have the public on board. Let's communicate the information. Let's be transparent. And this is what this report is. And the report that was released on January 15th is actually called the preview report, because what they were going to do was, send out something by the summer to fall of 2024, and it got delayed for whatever reasons. They were still collecting information, and got further and further delayed. The last I had heard was that it was going to be released in December, and then they said, well, maybe not quite December. And then they said they were going to release it in two parts, very similar to what AARO was doing theoretically, issue a report and then a historical study, which we still haven't seen. And this is the first part of the Sky Canada project study. And it's not the whole report. All it is sort of an executive summary, a message from Dr. Mona Nemer, and a list of people who contributed, of some recommendations, and then a survey. They'd actually surveyed the Canadian population about what they thought about UFOs. So it's not the whole report. In fact, the whole report is going to be much longer and will include, I think, what all the contributors actually contributed. So there's more to come. But this was not a study to say, here are the Canadian UFO reports, and the best ones are here, here, and here, and they're all purple and green and tic-tac shaped and all that sort of. That's not what this was going to do at all. In fact, this is laying the foundation for a study to figure all of that stuff out, so that we can have, and some of the recommendations we can talk about. They want to come up with an office to receive UFO reports nationally, which that's fantastic. The United States doesn't have that. France certainly has one of those in Gaipan, SOBEPS, in Belgium, and so forth, but nothing in the United States. But this, they wanted to do something well in Canada, and also they wanted to have some analysis that can be done, and then have a way of telling people, these are what the cases are. So be very, very transparent. So it's a very ambitious project, and this is just a little, I suppose, a teaser trailer for what's going to be coming up.
Interesting. And again, I think the key words here are science